We'll call this meeting to order. It is the April 14th, 2025 meeting of the Grafton Planning Board. Since we have one member attending remotely, we will call the roll. Justin Wood.
Present.
Bob Hassinger.
I'm here.
Greg Delamole.
Present.
Prabhu Venkatraman.
Present.
And David Robbins is present. And also with us is our staff, Town Planner Fiona Coughlin.
Present.
And Assistant Planner Natalia Allward.
Present.
All right, so we will begin with our meeting agenda. The first item is public input. If there is anybody attending this meeting that wishes to offer something to the board as public input that is not currently on the agenda for this evening's meeting, now would be the time to raise your hand for public input. I see nobody in the room and no Zoom attendees, so unless one of us has something to offer that qualifies as public input, we will take that agenda item as having been completed. Our action item agenda is one item, the draft decision on the modification of definitive plan approval for Abbey Woods to grant them a one-year extension, as we voted on at our previous meeting. And we now have a draft decision in front of us.
I move that we grant the draft decision as drafted. Approve, whatever the word I'm looking for is.
Second.
Moving and seconded. Any discussion? Fiona?
I will just acknowledge the fact that the date or the highlighted dates are off, so I just need to update that. That was the one catch, and I just decided.
I think he included that in his motion.
Yes.
Okay.
I heard it, so.
Yes, that's in. Is it a motion to approve a draft decision of whatever kind implies that any highlighted items are typically highlighted because they could go one way or other, like yes or no. It's
Right.
So the motion implies that everything is, all the highlighted items are resolved, are to be resolved. Any further discussion?
I think I just point out the one thing that I think the rest of the board knows, in case anyone's watching this, that we voted to grant the modification at our last meeting, and this is just approving the actual decision.
Yeah.
That's reflected in the decision, anyway.
Yes. So before us is a draft decision with no proposed modifications other than filling in the details that were highlighted and filling them in a way that is favorable
Yes.
and accurate. With no further discussion, Mr. Wood,
Aye.
Mr. Hassinger,
Aye.
Mr. Delamole,
Aye.
Mr. Venkatraman,
Aye.
Mr. Robbins votes aye. Motion carried unanimously. Staff will get the paperwork out the door. We have discussion items. First discussion item is the Technical Review Committee. We started discussing that at a previous meeting. Fiona has gathered together a few examples. I know that's a topic of particular interest to Mr. Mead, who has informed me that he would not be able to attend the meeting tonight. And I'm fairly confident that this will not be our only opportunity to discuss the topic. So, Fiona, if you can just sort of summarize what you've found so far, and we can talk about it to whatever extent we want to.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So as Dave mentioned, Ray has been also involved in some of the research with this. So happy to kind of continue this discussion later on to whenever the board agrees. During the last meeting, the board discussed gathering some examples from some communities that are comparable to Grafton. As well as just kind of a general research and an overview of what's out there. A couple of points that I wanted to just clarify is, we pulled two examples, Franklin, which was discussed at the last meeting, and Amesbury. Those are two examples from Massachusetts. It actually was interesting because I could not find a lot of Massachusetts examples, and a lot of the Massachusetts examples were focused more on like design review, which is similar. not exactly the same. It's obviously more focused on kind of architectural design, usually an area in town that has particular design guidelines. There's a committee associated with making sure those are implemented. So, but the kind of fundamental concept still applies here. So, but we did have actual examples of technical review committees from those two communities. I can just scroll through briefly. So we just kind of pulled together some links. Thank you to Natalia for her help with this as well. She did a great job. So just kind of pulling together some notes, snapshots from their webpage about how, they're organized and what their typical roles and responsibilities are. This is Franklin. And, again, Franklin also has a design review commission as well, which is similar in nature, not exactly the same as a technical review committee, but again, kind of similar. So these are some of the links that we provided, and then attached were forms. That was something that came up as well about the board kind of having concern around, memorializing the conversation that would be had with the technical review committee and how the board can make sure that the information shared there is carried into the public hearing process and factors into the materials that they would see. So this was nice to have this kind of here. It's a kind of standardized form that the community uses with some specifics regarding signs. I did not find in my research, I think Dave, you had mentioned at the last meeting about how kind of peer review is handled and kind of what the approach would be. I think that the understanding from my research is that if somebody opts to utilize a technical review committee or commission, then they would do that with the understanding that they would need to additionally pay engineers, surveyors, etc. for their time to attend those meetings, as well as compensate them for the time that they would spend in front of the boards. So there was no specifics that I could find that kind of differentiated or specified how peer review funds are kind of handled. So this was one example, and I'll just pull up Amesbury. Amesbury was actually quite cool as well. Amesbury is a city, but again, they had a pretty formalized committee and had a lot of interesting materials on their website. So we were able to pull how some of the bylaw language from when they adopted their technical review committee, kind of what the intention is for the group, their roles and responsibilities, justification for any restructuring that apparently occurred there, proposed structure, and then just, basically delegation of roles and responsibilities. And then this is some of their additional paperwork. Again, it's a lot of kind of design review, but it seems to me that a lot of communities outside of Massachusetts seem to really love this concept. It's very big in Rhode Island, New Hampshire, and Connecticut, but I've seen a lot of examples in Rhode Island and New Hampshire particularly. I'll pull up Derry's. I really liked their form. Thought it was very complete and a very kind of straightforward way of doing this. All the information is there, and it kind of covers every aspect of maybe what that, it's a wide ranging list of things that the technical review committee in this community handles. So, it ranges from landscaping to utilities, and then has internal worksheets for department head staff, which was so helpful and would be something that I think we would be envisioning and when, eventually, when we get to that point. So, again, every base is really covered here, and I really liked this example. So, other than that, it was really just kind of data and information gathering to continue this conversation, and, happy to kind of get some of the board's initial thoughts on this and kind of continue to have the conversation. I included Charlton in here as well. They don't have a technical review committee, but they have a awesome permitting guide, which
I love the
Charlton
guide.
permitting guide.
yes,
Just
it's
happens
lovely.
to relate very nicely to one of our master plan proposed action items.
Yes, exactly. So and within the guide, it talks about I think they coin it as a pre-development review meeting. It's structured similar to a technical assistance committee, but it's just not titled that. And it's just nice to have that like woven into kind of an overarching permitting guide that, this would ultimately be something that, we would like to pursue in Grafton as well. So
Even their little like timeline bubbles a few pages below that is like linked to things, so you can click
Right.
it and get to your stuff in the same doc. And they have like table of responsibilities for all sorts of things. I loved it, but yeah,
it was great.
Yeah, that's the first thing I thought of when I read through the Charlton document was that I've been reviewing the action items in the master plan draft, and
Yeah.
this fits right in.
Yeah, it's a great resource, and we do have something in Grafton that's similar to this. It's more of like a brochure. It's like a one pager, but this is obviously way more built out and comprehensive. And it was just very cool to kind of. There's different ways. Long story short, there's different ways to do things in every community, and I think a more kind of formalized approach like this would be nice.
You're looking at this as crossing all the lines, conservation, planning, all of it, building.
Sorry about that.
So I'm not sure. It seems to me that the administration should be bringing this forward and asking for input from all the various bodies. I don't think the planning board should be driving it. I want, he's talking about, or you're talking about, largely staff commitment beyond really the planning board, any of the boards and committees. So, I don't see, I'm not real comfortable at this point with the idea of the planning board being the lead on this. If you want to put something together which is thoroughly isolated from our authority and our responsibility, you know what I mean, that we don't do something that, or they don't do something that compromises us either in our decision or in the appeal.
So, from my seat, I like the concept. I think I agree with Bob that this board doesn't need to drive it. We can certainly support the idea and exploration, but we don't have to. I don't think we have to drive it. To the earlier point about peer reviews, I think, to my mind, it should be spelled out in the idea that developers may choose to pay and enlist peer review services during the technical review committee, but are not like explicitly saying not required to. Though of course, if they wait, then they may have more changes to do for more costs anyway.
Right.
But they could choose to use that earlier rather than having to have as many revisions once before a board. In theory, but that doesn't replace the board's authority.
Right.
So is the technical review piece of the process in these towns optional, or you have to do it?
It's optional, in my understanding. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a service that the town could offer,
Right.
isn't it?
Yeah, it's
Well,
right.
it kind of ties to like economic development and some of that too.
Yeah, what I read, particularly looking at at Franklin and Amesbury, and to a lesser extent Derry, the technical review committee is much like our current development team. Except it's sort of an extension of the development team concept, where the technical review committee, the development team kind of talks to development generally, and they don't really zero in too much on the specifics of any one project. Well, they're certainly, it's similar in that the development team brings together the various different regulatory bodies, and sort of one place where you can talk about all the different things you need to think about with permits and everything. a technical review committee by whatever name or concept is similar to that, except it's a little bit more focused on a particular project. You have a particular project in mind, you can get together with the technical review committee and get a lot of advice and guidance for planning, conservation, health, fire, basically everybody who's involved in our permitting processes for the planning board. And the same is true for conservation, I know, that a permit application is basically circulated amongst all the boards and commissions and committees and departments for feedback. And this is it's kind of like that. Again, it's sort of like almost a one-stop shop for that, to get a little bit more of that done. But it's all voluntary. In these the Franklin and Amesbury examples, it's you can utilize it, but the technical review committee or commission or whatever it's called, it doesn't. It's the end result is maybe they work with the project proponent to refine some of the design elements, but ultimately when it comes to a board, it comes with a report from the review committee. What I noticed about Barrington is a little bit different. That the Barrington, Rhode Island, and I don't think this is a model we could adopt in Massachusetts, but in Barrington, Rhode Island, a project application basically is filed with the equivalent process here would be the application is initially submitted to the planning board, but before it gets to a planning board public hearing, it first goes through their review committee. The review committee works on it and ultimately produces a report that is then, at that point, a public hearing is scheduled. I don't see that working with us for two reasons. One, it doesn't fit with the special permit scheduling requirements, and two, that is really only looking at it in the context of a planning board procedure. And as you guys have noted, this idea really extends beyond planning. So we wouldn't be able to adopt a model quite like that. Regardless of how we went about it.
And to my understanding as well, I think to my understanding as well, I think in Massachusetts, as long as an application is complete, as in all the required information, like who's there, the abutters, everything else, and the fees are paid, we must accept the application.
Right.
Once it's deemed complete, we must accept the
Except that
application.
we accept it even though it's incomplete.
Yeah.
And I've complained about that for 30 years.
Yeah.
We had a little trouble with one planner because of that. I felt that it should be complete before they came to us. And I've never been able to get close to that. The development team thing, that's the Thursday afternoon meeting thing?
Or it's been Tuesday.
Well, whatever.
Thursday, too.
Thursday now?
Yeah, Thursdays. Yep, you got it.
Thursday. This is, to some degree, this is really just an expansion on that. You're opening up a little different look. There, it sounds to me like it's mostly exploring feasibility and how to get started. Now what you're proposing would get into more depth than, the zoning officer saying, this is over here and blah, 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 and so on. And that's all fine. And if the select board wants to cover this in its budget, okay.
Yeah.
It seems like it would put them in the position of being friendly to.
Right.
Yeah, also, one of the proposed action items in the new master plan is to streamline development processes. And this fits
Adds a new layer.
If by streamline you mean a way to get things done a little bit quicker, with less sort of repetitive work.
And this might be.
This idea could fit, it could relate to that.
Well, I'm wondering also if there's, a range of ways to apply it, right? So you could have like in the one instance, it's a pre-development meeting. It could be essentially informational for the applicant to get some of the fine details of the specific regulations in the town, whether or not they have to approve it or pass on a report to us or whatever. Because I guess if you're not, I mean, even in the Franklin one, they had part of their charter was to preserve the New England quality of the town, and it was more kind of holistic, right? Which I don't think we're talking about, even though it might be helpful, but it's hard to align everybody around that. I guess what it might alleviate, right, is having lots of engineers and other studies come in and then waiting for the peer review and us sort of waiting for them to all agree,
Right.
versus having some of the fine details be hashed out earlier on. So
Yeah.
that's, I guess, I mean, and I don't know, Ray's not here to talk about the more of his experience, but he had talked about like multiple rounds and everything like that. That seems like it could be adding a lot to the process versus if there was an elective pre-development meeting where you could talk to some people who are really well versed in the specific regulations of the town to just sort of, hey, make sure you're thinking of this, 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 and this
Yeah.
before you go before the planning board, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And maybe that's light enough to be helpful and not hold the whole thing up. But I don't know how that would be staffed and all that.
Right.
I-
No, that's a good point.
I look at it as a service the town offers to people who feel they can benefit from it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not an approval process. It's really, it saves you coming in here 43 times to try to catch the building inspector to look at your plans and, talk to you about stuff. It regularize regularizes that. So
Right.
that's fine. Off of if the town wants to, if the town can, sure.
I think it's pretty clear that this idea is, the scope is broader than just the planning board. And like I said, we have a couple spots in the master plan that this idea fits pretty well with. And yeah, we as a board, we sort of talked about this a little bit, but I think we're probably at a point where there's, since it's clear that the scope is larger than the board, that a broader cross section of town departments, bodies can should at some point get involved with this. I don't know how much farther we want to take it as a board, but given that there's a place in the master plan action items for something like the discussion like this to continue, if nothing else, let's sort of conceptually at least include it in going forward with the master plan.
If I may just add, so yeah, I think, all these points are great, and yes, the scope is larger than the board. I mean, the board is over, planning board and ZBA are seeing them, well, really more the planning board are seeing most of these types of applications, but right, the scope is bigger, and I think maybe this might be more of a conversation that's geared toward how we can bolster maybe the existing development team meeting structure, and getting that a little bit, maybe having some sort of like form as part of that, or what, or where there's different ways to do it, and every community does it differently. And right now, we do, development team meeting is optional. Some people take us up on it. Some people are great about it. Coming in, making a point to always come to development team meeting before they submit their requisite applications. But I think that there's a structure in place in town that's similar to this. It could definitely, every week it's myself, the building inspector, the fire chief, and the conservation agent who attend. And, obviously there's other players there, but those are kind of the main ones. And that's when we've seen people who've come in at various stages, they're very high level. They have no idea what they want to do. They just want to know a little bit about a parcel in particular. Or they have plans, they're ready to file, they're just want to kind of nitpick a few little things and get kind of the thoughts of staff. So yeah, maybe this is kind of more of taking some suggestions from these communities about how we can improve our existing system. So instead of creating a whole new committee per se. So I mean, I think that it's definitely was a worthwhile conversation, and maybe just the next step would be to discuss with the administration and see how we can improve.
Yeah, I think the basic, the core idea of this is to facilitate the work of the boards by getting some of these cycles of review and revision taken care of before before it even gets to the boards. You know, and how exactly we accomplish that in a way that fits in with our organization and the way responsibilities are divided among the different boards. That's something we do need to work. I was just reminded when thinking about this that when I talked about the master plan and the action items, the action items that touch on this are within the economic development section of the master plan. So the Economic Development Commission might be interested in being included in conversations about this. I don't know that I don't think we've really nailed down the assignment of responsibility for these action items. That's something we're still working on, but
Yeah.
I think we've got an idea here and a place to go with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's,
I think one of the supporting arguments or how come this seems good is when the negotiation, know your plan needs, you'll be back in a month. Maybe the plan got back in time to be reviewed, maybe it didn't. And that is what tends to make coming before this board. And I suppose, I would guess that certainly the ZBA ought to be similar for projects in many ways. So the motivation is this should streamline, this should help people with being able to, hey, tomorrow we're having the meeting, get it in here.
Yeah. You want to get your project reviewed more quickly? We've got these resources that you can leverage.
And it'll
sure.
and it will certainly help planning board members in general have full context of a project because you don't have to spread it out over 8 months that with 20 plan reviews, 20 plan changes and such.
I mean, there's always going to be situations where, it's got to go through several cycles with us.
Yes.
And
Sure.
anything to do with matters over which the board has discretionary authority.
Yes.
I mean, no one's proposing that we give up our responsibilities as a board. We're just looking for things that can be done to reduce our workload and number of repeated meetings.
Yeah. And this
But,
will
Exactly.
we retain all the decisions that belong to us.
Yes, absolutely.
and this situation would certainly also help in situations where a proposed project, as the developers had envisioned it, might need ZBA, conservation, and us. Whereas once the development team sees stuff, maybe you can take use of reserved parking. You don't need ZBA. Maybe if you just move your stuff out a little bit more, you won't actually need conservation because you'll be out of the flood district.
Yeah.
That
Right.
kind of thing.
And if I may, we've seen as of late, we have, to development team's credit, we have seen a lot more sophisticated and advanced proposals in front of development team meeting of people who are really getting to, because we're trying to, at least, Natalia and I are always trying to encourage people strongly, hey, I talked to the building inspector and I need to do this thing. Can you help me? And we'll say, yes, absolutely. We can help you with the basic administrative questions, but we encourage you to come in and discuss because there might be something, there might not be a hydrant, whatever. Pick your scenario. So, okay. So I think, I'm clear on this. I think, we can we can continue to talk about it as well, but, I think more of, kind of getting some more feedback and kind of seeing how maybe we can focus a little bit more on, I guess, maybe development team as well, instead of kind of reinventing the wheel is what I'm hearing.
By the way, Dave referenced the shot clocks or particularly the special permit timeline. But now the laws have been enhanced in Boston so that we have things that have shorter even than the special permit shot clocks, don't we? Certainly the tower communications tower,
Yeah.
but I think some of the others too.
Could be.
Yeah.
Anyway, enough on that for the moment.
I think so.
I think we've, this has probably been a pretty helpful discussion in terms of seeing what the direction in which this ought to go. And it is now 7:32, so we are in our public hearing time. And the first scheduled public hearing we have is on the zoning bylaw amendment articles for the spring annual town meeting warrant.
I don't know if I have that one in here. Oh, no, here it is. Sorry, it's just. All right. I do have it. Pursuant to sections 1.5.7 and 1.3.3 of the Town of Grafton zoning bylaws, the planning board will hold a public hearing on Monday, April 28th, commencing at 7:30 in Conference Room A at the Grafton Memorial Municipal Center, 30 Providence Road, Grafton, Mass, to consider application. Oh, no, this is special permit too. So these are both special permits. George Hill Road in this one. I don't have anything to read for
Okay.
the
Pull it up.
for the bylaws.
Yeah,
Let me see if I can find it.
and George Hill Road is until next meeting.
Okay.
That's it there, and then I'll also
I'll get it up and I'll read it for sake if I can find it right here. There we go.
thank you.
I'll read it since I have it on my screen. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 5, the Grafton Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Monday, September 26, 2022? Is this the right one?
That's certainly not today's date.
No, it's not. Which makes me wonder. This is also stamped 2022. This is the wrong.
Me.
I'm looking at the top of the page instead of the bottom of the page. Got the right one. Sorry, look at the wrong side of the page. Okay, let me repeat. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 5, the Grafton Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Monday, April 14th, 2025, commencing at 7:30 p.m. in Conference Room A at the Grafton Memorial Municipal Center, 30 Providence Road, Grafton, Mass. The purpose of the public hearing is to provide interested parties with the opportunity to comment on proposed amendments to the Grafton zoning bylaw, which have been submitted to the 2025 Spring Annual Town Meeting warrant as follows. ZBL 2025-01, ZBL 2025, do I have to read the whole thing? I'm double checking. I can if we're supposed to.
Yeah, maybe just
Okay.
an abundance of caution.
ZBL 2025-01, amend sections 1.3.3.3 and 1.3.3.4 under site plan review to update D through F to D through H, aligning the complete list of site plan review requirements to the waiver request form for site plan review applications. ZBL 2025-02, amend section 1.3.3 entitled Site Plan Review and section 1.5.8 entitled Period of Validity to mirror special permit and site plan validity periods, unless a longer period is granted in writing. ZBL 2025-03, amend section 12 entitled Village and Neighborhood Mixed Use District VMU to modify the definition of attached single-family dwelling in section 12.3.6 to align the definition and its requirements with section 12.6.1 and to provide consistent and clarifying language throughout the bylaw. ZBL 2025-04, amend section 13 entitled North Grafton Transit Village Overlay District NGTVOD to comply with the simple majority voting requirement as mandated in MGL Chapter 40R. ZBL 2025-05, amend section 2 entitled Definitions to clarify the definition of tool shed. ZBL 2025-06, amend section 5.8 entitled Wireless Communication Facilities to include modifying the definitions in sections 5.8.1.2, modifying section 5.8.4 to elaborate on submittal requirements, and to add a new subsection I requiring certified radio frequency report. Adjusting the height allowance for unmanned infrastructure in section 5.8.6.8, removing section 5.8.6.10, simplifying landscaping requirements in section 5.8.6.13, adding a new section 5.8.10, modifications to outline the process for determining reviewing eligible facilities requests, EFRs, and incorporating technical, clerical, and other clarifying changes as proposed by the town's wireless consultant and in response to technological evolutions, federal law, and more efficient means of managing visual impacts. A complete copy of the text of the proposed amendments to the Grafton zoning bylaw is on file with the town clerk and the planning board office in the Grafton Municipal Center and is available for inspection during normal business hours. Individuals requiring special accommodations at the public hearing should contact the planning board office at 508-839-5335, extension 1400.
Okay, now,
You're welcome, Greg.
Thank you very much.
the reading of the legal notice has just about completely described all of the proposed changes. I suppose for the sake of our viewing audience, we might most easily go through the section here with the color-coded changes that Fiona's got up on the screen and just sort of look at, zoom in on that a little bit so anybody can read it. So we have no Zoom attendees and nobody in the audience, but if any member of the board wishes to speak to any of these proposed changes, now would be a good time.
I think my voice is gone.
Yeah.
I think in previous meetings as we were preparing these, as a board, pretty thoroughly discussed this, all of these. And does anybody have any issues, any points of discussion that they would like to raise now?
No.
I move we close the public hearing.
Second.
Moved and seconded that this public hearing be closed. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Mr. Wood?
Aye.
Mr. Hassinger?
Aye.
Mr. Delamole?
Aye.
Mr. Venkatraman? I didn't hear Prabhu's voice.
Aye.
Thank you. And Ms. Robbins votes aye. Motion carried unanimously. The public hearing is closed. We have a draft planning board report.
I also move to recommend acceptance of the zoning bylaw amendments ZBL 2025-01 through ZBL 2025-06 at the spring 2025 annual town meeting.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Is this approving our report?
This is us
Recommending.
recommending them to the town meeting. This is not approving the report yet.
Oh. You got a second, didn't you?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Wood?
Aye.
Mr. Hassinger?
Aye.
Mr. Delamole?
Aye.
Mr. Venkatraman?
Aye.
Mr. Robbins votes aye. Motion carried unanimously. The board officially recommends these articles be passed at town meeting. And as to the report itself, I noticed the report did assume that Ray Mead would be present at this meeting tonight, and he is not. The draft report does correctly note that no public comment was received on any of these proposed articles. Anything else with the draft report that the board wants to note? Fiona will, of course, fill in the votes.
And my only other note, which is in yellow, is the article numbers once known should be included in the report.
The select board is scheduled to close the warrant tomorrow evening.
Yep.
And the draft warrant actually does have numbers on it, but staff can take care of that as they compose the final report, the final version of the report.
Yep.
And just to be on the safe side, I would suggest not filling in the article numbers or not publishing this, waiting until the warrant is actually closed, so there can be no doubt about the article numbers.
Agreed.
Not that I expect any changes. But you know, it ain't over till it's over, as somebody said.
So I'll move the planning board accept the report to be published as drafted and as suggested in timing.
Second,
Moved and seconded. Any discussion of that motion? Hearing none. Mr. Wood,
Aye.
Mr. Hassinger,
aye.
Mr. Delamole,
Aye.
Mr. Venkatraman,
Aye.
and Ms. Robbins votes aye, I guess. Motion carried unanimously. We are all set for the town meeting.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I'm gonna, since Justin did such a good job, I'm gonna have Justin read the entire report, word for word. at town
I'll
meeting.
pass that on to someone else.
The last time anybody read through a lengthy report, planning board report at town meeting was me, and it was way, way more reading than should have been necessary.
I think I tried.
I will never do that again.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we wouldn't have to.
All right.
Don't technically have to do that. It's
No.
just a, okay. Yeah. Might be.
I
It's
guess
sufficient.
that's one question I have is like, what supplement to actually having it in the warrant at the meeting? You know, you're not going to read the whole thing, but can you give a summary of,
We-
for some context?
We sometimes do that.
Yeah, but we print our report and have it available
Okay.
The requirement is that there be a report
to the meeting,
to
to the
town
meeting members.
To town meeting. That
Okay.
there is no requirement that all or any portion of the report needs to be read in front of it. Spoken to town meeting.
That's
So
quite
we
a
had,
change.
right, we had traditionally done the whole getting up and reading it. We'd traditionally done that for many years, but it's not really necessary.
Sometime when we're not in a meeting, I'll tell you one or two things about that.
Yes. Okay, so we have one other public hearing this evening. A request for project plan review at Lower Valley Road, trustees of Tufts College.
Okay. I've looked this one up, so you can
Oh.
take this one off, Justin.
Okay.
The Grafton Planning Board will hold a public meeting on Monday, April 14th, 2025, commencing at 7:30 p.m. in the conference room A at the Grafton Memorial Municipal Center, 30 Providence Road, Grafton, Mass, to consider an application for a project plan review for the Cummings School of Veterinary Medicine at Tufts University pursuant to section 9.6.1.2 of the Grafton zoning bylaw for the construction of a 150 space paved parking lot at Lower Valley Road with associated improvements on property located at 200 Westboro Road and shown as Grafton Assessor's Map 21 Lot 1A. Said property is located in an office light industry OLI and campus development overlay CDO zoning district. The applicant owner is trustees of Tufts College, aka Tufts University. Copies of the application and plan are available for public inspection at the planning department during regular business hours on the Town of Grafton website at www.grafton-ma.gov on the planning department and development project page.
All right, so
Sure.
introduce this, Fiona.
Yeah, absolutely. So, thank you, everyone. So as just described, the Tufts team are proposing a project plan review application, which is the equivalent of a site plan approval, for the construction of a 150 space parking lot, which is going to be located just, there's a parking area associated with the, Wayne will be able to correct me in a moment when I turn it over to him, but the Bernice, medical building. So this will supplement parking in that area, but it's going to provide spaces for any visitors to the campus, which is nice. I think the board might recall during the the most recent parking report that the demand was outweighing the supply, and now with these additional 150 spaces, they will be back in the green. So that is great news to hear. In addition to the spaces, there will be associated drainage improvements, including two gravel wetlands, which is quite a cool concept that I will wait for the engineers to explain, as well as pedestrian walkways that will connect to two crossing areas across Willard Street. One is an existing crosswalk to the north that will connect to the hospital, and one will be a new crossing area that's at the intersection of Jumbo's Path and Willard Street, which currently does not have any sort of kind of pedestrian infrastructure. So, and from there also the board may have noticed in the record that the site plans were modified in response to a comment from myself about adding some additional, pedestrian infrastructure to continue the crosswalk area. So they will be adding, give or take, I think it's about 950 feet of of sidewalk rather to the westerly side of Jumbo's Path, leading to another crosswalk that's kind of further over there to the left. It's kind of cut out in the screenshot, but it'll kind of go along this way. So as well as associated lighting, landscaping improvements. This is, it's a relatively straightforward application, pretty sophisticated drainage and stormwater, which is nice to see, that complements the characteristics of the campus, and including having a wildflower seed mix, which for the honeybee population. And lastly, I think I'll just elaborate that their asphalt grindings will be reused along. There's a pathway. You can't really see it here too much. I'll pull up the plans in a moment, but there's a access drive leading to the rear of the property that services the solar array. So they'll reuse some of the millings there and replace a existing culvert. So with that being said, I do know that LDC is on and can elaborate on anything that I just said.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Wayne Bellick, Land Design Collaborative. I'm joined by one of my partners in crime, Nate Boutz. So if this stormwater system blows up, it's his fault. It's good seeing you folks again. It's been a while. And really happy to see you guys. And I must compliment Mr. Wood for having the lung capacity to read what he had done. I would be passed out at this point. But if it works for you, Fiona, if you'd like, I can drive, and I can zip right through the plans. I don't know what I have left to cover. You seem to do the presentation for me, so that you did a nice job there. So, any chance I might be able to take command?
I just made you co-host, Wayne, so you should be able to drive now.
Thank you.
You might need to
I'm
stop
ready.
sharing.
Oh, and I'll stop sharing. Yep, that would help.
Now you see a budget spreadsheet. You folks see my screen.
Yep, we see
Yes.
the budget spreadsheet. Yes.
Terrific. So if there's anything you want to know, I guess you know all the billing rates and everything. So there it goes. So again, Wayne Bellick, Land Design Collaborative. Again, like I said, nice seeing you folks. This is a fun project. One of our first of many, we believe, with the Tufts campus here in Grafton. So as Fiona had indicated, the site is located on the Tufts campus. Willard Road, if you can see the screen here, Willard Road comes down through here. So it would be
All
located
we're
on the
seeing
east side
still
of.
is that spreadsheet. We don't see another screen.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Okay. Nate. That's great. That's really good. So Nate's going to give me grief with everybody. So let me see. How can I get back to that?
You might have to stop sharing and then reshare a different screen, Wayne. That happens to me more times than I'd like to admit.
How's this? Are you seeing it now?
There you
Yes.
Yes.
So I'm going to get rid of that. So you see the screen?
Yes, we do.
go. Yes.
Thanks. So what'd you think of my budget skills, folks? So again, so this is the site. This is Willard Street in here with Route 30 to the north. and the project site area is located in here. So a zoomed in version of that is this guy here. So Willard Street. This is the Bernice Center, so also known as the Wildlife Center, large and small animal hospital here in Jumbo's Path. What you see in the red dash line is the area of interest, and what that is the parking area. This is the sidewalk system that Fiona was talking about for the new crossing, and then the existing crossing would be through here where we would propose some striping. The existing site, we've had some topographic survey done out here, wetland delineation, just to get you up to speed with where we are. We have filed concurrently with the Conservation Commission. They went to open the hearing a couple weeks ago, but didn't have a quorum. So we're looking to continue that to tomorrow night. So we haven't had any testimony with the Conservation Commission as of yet. But we have a wetland system. Basically, it's an open, as you folks know, it's an open meadow through here with a bordering vegetated wetland, goes through a farmer's culvert, and it continues down gradient. And I think Mr. Hassinger might remember when we did the Forest Hills, Lordvale, there was a farmer's culvert up in there, up in that site, and it was basically comprised of stones. Basically, they eons ago, they opened up a trench, dropped some stones in there, and allowed water to pass through, and it's a similar type system. The existing Millings parking lot is 92 spaces located in here. This is all paved through here, striped spaces. There are some handicap accessible spaces in here, which are non-compliant, and we look to address that in the design. I'll get into that in a minute. We have Jumbo's Path up through here, and so as you can see, this is paved up through here, striped center line, and the other pedestrian way is through here up to the small and large animal hospital. So with that said, like I said, 192 parking spaces, Millings currently. This is a gravel driveway through here. And when we had gone out to visit the site, we had noticed that there was a kettle hole that was excavated in this area. And the intent of the kettle hole was to take some of the runoff that was coming down from this paved area and to slow it down before it hit the gravel path. Unfortunately, there isn't really a whole heck of a lot of runoff that's getting to the kettle hole. It continues to come down here and continues to be a maintenance issue to the Tufts maintenance crew. So they're continually resurfacing this with gravel. Likewise, with this farmer's culvert down below here, there isn't enough capacity within the culvert itself to allow for stormwater runoff to come through, and in the less frequent events, allowing it to come through as a conveyance as it's intended, but rather a restriction, so it causes it to overtop and wash out some of the gravel. So as part of what we're doing here is we looked at, one, converting the 92 space Millings parking lot, and two, addressing some of the ongoing stormwater and erosion issues on the campus. So we start by our erosion sediment control plan. That will begin with taking this area in here, removing the Millings, repurposing that, and placing it along the gravel cart road to stabilize that area. As part of that, we would remove the culvert, but the very first thing that would be doing is constructing a sediment basin, which is going to be the future home of the stormwater infiltration, stormwater management basin, and the gravel wetland. As part of that, we would install diversion channels along the side of the parking area to intercept any runoff that gets down there, and likewise the same in here. We've identified some loam stockpile areas in here, over in this area, and this here would be the location in which processed gravel would be delivered to the site after the parking lot is stripped and the loam is stockpiled. As part of that, we would install erosion sediment control measures. Like I said, we're currently before the Conservation Commission. So we'll install the erosion sediment control measures, which will stay in place throughout construction. We are proposing a construction fueling area here out of the buffer zone temporary storage unit for the keeping of erosion sediment control measures, straw wattles and the like out of the elements so that they stay nice and dry, and construction trailer in this location. So as part of this, it's interesting, when you're dealing, as you folks know, with your past experience on this campus, it's logistics, right? I mean, we've got to be able to, while the sites, the project is, or the campus is active, we need to be doing this work. When we plan to do this, the activity out here is going to be limited. We're targeting a start date of the middle of May and ending before classes resume. There will still be some activity on campus. It'll be pretty much faculty and the folks that work on the campus during the week, other than the students. So it won't be in full swing at that point, and that's why we're targeting this time to do the work. Proposed conditions, layout materials. So basically what we're looking at out here is the Lower Valley Road comes in like this, the paved area. This is all paved in here. And what we're looking to do is continue the pavement in this area here, expanding it. The existing lot comes down to about here, and we're looking to expand it down to this area. As part of that, we are looking to install some landscape islands, as Fiona had indicated earlier, based on the conversations that we had with town staff and with people at Tufts. The honeybee population out here is thriving, and we're looking to further enhance that. With the Willard Clock Museum, we understand they have some hives over there, and this campus has some here. So we felt that the best way to address the landscape requirements was a wildlife mix within the islands and along the perimeter of the parking lot. Pedestrian ways, before I get into this, we did run the town's fire apparatus through here and found that it was able to maneuver throughout the site without issues. For pedestrian ways, we're proposing a pedestrian walkway along the edge here, which is going to require a crosswalk to the other side of Lower Valley Road, and then continue to the north, meandering through the island, eventually meeting up with the existing Bitconk walk here, and then they're allowed to traverse over Willard Street. As part of our plan here, we're also looking to, as Fiona had indicated earlier, we initially looked at proposing this walkway. This is going to be part of phase 2. So phase 1 is primarily the parking lot, the walkway up to this area here, and the stormwater management basin. Phase 2 would consist of this access walkway over to Jumbo's Path, where we would propose a walkway along the left side of Jumbo's Path as you're heading into the road, up the road, meandering through the existing trees. A couple trees will have to be relocated, but meandering between the existing trees up to a point where we're going to have a striped walkway that's going to meet up with their existing walkway and take them points westward. In terms of lighting on site, we are proposing some light fixtures, and we could get into the photometrics on that. We did have a photometrics plan done, night sky compliance fixtures. We are proposing that out here. That's going to be the fixture types, color schemes, and everything are going to be consistent with what Tufts has on campus. We're meeting those specifications. Likewise, we are proposing wayfinding signs for the pedestrians, so when they park their vehicles here and they make their way points westward, there are wayfinding signs that we are positioning throughout WF 2, 1, and they continue again westward. The existing signage as we enter the site, as you folks know, as you come up Willard's Street, you'll notice that there are existing signs here that do have some literature, if you will, on them, indicating basically wayfinding signs. We would indicate on this side that this parking lot, Lower Valley Road parking lot, is straight ahead. And likewise, as you approach this area in here, it will further indicate that you take the left to get into the Lower Valley Road parking lot. As part of our system here, like I said earlier, the stormwater management system is a low impact development system, a green system, and it's basically a gravel wetland type system. These are nice systems, as you folks are aware, with the MS4 requirements. We're required to not only, back in the day with Wetlands Protection Act and the state stormwater regs and your town's local stormwater regs. You had to look at, the pre and post development hydrology, you had to look at TSS removal, and now they're looking at chemical removal, phosphorus and other chemicals as those. So the system uptakes some of those pollutants that makes its way through the system. So basically what we're looking at here, we wanted to maintain the character, and I do appreciate Fiona pointing that out. I don't know how often you folks have had an opportunity to go out to this campus, but our firm has done work on several campuses. And unlike some campuses where you hear students shouting from one side to the other, where's the party tomorrow night or something, what you hear here are the horses whinnying and the cows moving, and there's nothing like it. So what we did is when we looked at this design, we said, let's maintain that character. Let's not look at these, closed drainage systems. Let's think lid, let's think swales. So that's what we're proposing here. So, and they still meet the TSS removal requirements of the state and local stormwater regulations. So basically, we've got at various locations, we have 3 locations where we are proposing paved spillways, which will just discharge into a riprap swale, and it'll take the water down into the infiltration basin and the gravel wetland. So this, like I said, this is basically the layout. We are proposing light pole fixtures, as I said, double fixtures in here, and here, as well as this area in here to address a blind spot in here. Traffic circulation is pretty straightforward, as you can see by the flow arrows. 2 directions, and like I said earlier in our site prep plan, we would be looking to take this area down in here and propose to take the millings to stabilize that surface. Grading and drainage. So here's the fun stuff. So the grading, as you can see, the site currently pitches at about a 5% grade. We don't want to go much more than that on parking areas, so we held our 5%. And as you can see, what we're proposing here is, as I said earlier, we had the existing kettle hole is actually located in here, as you can see. And as I said, that's really not taking any stormwater runoff as it comes down here. Basically, it currently comes down and then continues and bypasses it, not making its way to the kettle hole, and it causes this erosion issue down in here. So our thought was, well, let's, rather than take all this stormwater runoff, because that's existing, there really isn't a need to attenuate that. It's going downstream anyway. So we said, all right, why don't we create a slight ridge in here, direct that to this area in here, a sediment basin with a drop inlet, take it under the road into the meadow so that it doesn't overtop the road and continue the erosion issue here. So that addresses that area in there, and that's the redevelopment portion of the site. And when we're looking at it from a stormwater perspective, the new construction again is the paved surface area in here. Our stormwater design takes into account not only all of this, but the pedestrian ways as they head north here and to the east. So we size this to accommodate everything in here so that we result in no increase in the peak rate of runoff for all the required storm events. Down below, as I said, this area is susceptible to overtopping. So we are proposing a pair of twin culverts in here. There is no alteration to any of the resource areas out here. So everything that we're proposing does not alter any resource area. We will have temporary alteration in the 20-foot no disturb zone. However, that work is necessary for the installation of these culverts, which will have a benefit is not to take sediment-laden waters down into the wetland system as it has that potential of doing now. So the fun stuff, the gravel wetland. So these are fun to design, by the way. The gravel wetland is an interesting concept. basically, if you think of it's almost like a septic system. Obviously not wastewater, but it's almost like a septic system. The difference is rather than have the stone beneath the pipe, you have the pipe at the bottom of the stone. And the way it works is that the stormwater runoff comes down through the channel. In this particular case, and I'm going to go to a blow up over in here. And the reason I'm showing you this is it's because it's a pretty cool system. The stormwater comes down, hits the swale. We have a concrete pad that we're proposing in here with a concrete curb. And what happens is once the water hits this, the first 10% of the initial flush. So once the rain comes down and it flushes the sediment, it comes into this 3,500 gallon holding tank. The sediments drop out in there, and then the system is designed so that as the storm intensifies and it's taken that first flush and accommodated for 10% of the water quality volume in this unit, the remainder of the storm comes over the top, and the whatever sediments continue make their way into the gravel wetland, which is the way it's supposed to be designed. The water quality volume in the detention in the gravel wetland is 90% of what is required of the 100% water quality volume. Now, like I said, interesting pipe system where you have a network of pipes underground. We have the stone. On top of the stone, there's a Marafi fabric placed, and then on top of that, 8 inches of loam and peat. And then you plant your wetland plant community, and then it thrives. And then it continues to cleanse the stormwater as it makes its way through the system. Once it hits this structure and comes out through the outlet control structure, there's a weir on the inside of that controls the height of the stormwater, so that what it does is it keeps the groundwater at a certain elevation in here to allow the plants to keep their feet wet and thrive. That's the grading and drainage plan. Utility plan. So as you folks know, up on the campus, there are electrified fences for livestock. So that would continue here. We are looking to relocate the electrified fence to this location around the perimeter of the parking lot, and then connect to the existing electrified fence up in here. The campus really values its livestock space out here, and so whatever we can do to maximize that, that's what we're looking to do here. So again, that is electrified. We're going to have electrical conduit specific to the fencing, electrical conduit specific to the lighting, and essentially it's going to run around, loop, and terminate at this location. It is going to come from one mechanical room located in the Bernice Harbor Wildlife Center at the southeast corner of the building. That's the electrical, and again, this is Jumbo's Path. As you can see, the access drive, or the access pedestrian trail headed westward and points westward. So these are the details. This is our gravel wetland, a cutaway section of it, showing all the intricate piping network. Here's the weir I was talking about, which stays at this elevation to keep the plant feet wet. And in terms of details, that's pretty much it. One of the questions that was raised by conservation was to provide a culvert detail showing our pipes to ensure that there were no impacts to the wetlands. And as you can see, computer-generated model shows the edge of the bordering vegetated wetland here and the beginning of the culvert here. The base of the slope when we install that culvert will be a boulder, basically a boulder head wall, and the boulders will be tamped into that face, securing it tightly as armoring. We will have some signage on site. Like I said, the wayfinding signs basically is a blow up of our wayfinding signs. These will meet the requirements. I know Fiona brought that up to ensure that we meet the requirements. And we have noted on the plans that they will be needing a sign permit, which will need to meet the requirements of the town of Grafton zoning bylaw. And in fact, if the board seeks to include that as a condition of approval, that certainly works for us. And then the other signage showing wayfinding signs throughout. Again, the color scheme, the font style for the lettering will be consistent with that of what Tufts currently has on campus. We do have a pedestrian way that we are proposing, and we are proposing that at this location. Let me get there. Layout materials. So what we're proposing is the portable sign. If you folks, actually, I showed those just a second ago. We have a couple signs here. So the portable sign is this little guy here. The state law, pedestrians within the crosswalk. And then the other one is going to be posted where we've got this signage ahead. The other one will be the flashing beacon, which currently exists on site. We're going to have those positioned here as well. We do have advanced warning signage here of pedestrian crossing here, which complies with the MUTCD requirements in terms of the sighting of those signs based on this road type requirement that they be no more than 125 feet. So that is basically it in terms of the parking on site. This is our photometrics plan. As you can see, we are showing 0 foot candle, 0.1. We haven't even made it out to the road at this location, so very little spillage. Night sky compliant. We have 0 out by the wetlands. So night sky compliant fixtures. And let's see, what else is there? Traffic, the maneuvering on site. Initially, when we looked at this, I had asked, I'm not sure if it was Nate or one of the other guys in the office, I asked them to run what I figured, I didn't expect that a ladder truck would need to go to a parking lot. So I asked that they run like a pumper or something, knowing that there was a hydrant up in here. But the fire chief wanted us to run their ladder. We did run the ladder, and what you see here, there are no issues here. Whenever we do these analyses, we look at it horizontally and vertically. As you can see, the tire track is in red, and in green is the body overhang. So we're able to clear as we come through, and it shows that the vehicle is able to make its maneuvers, come through the site, and then exit the site at that location. That, I believe, is it, other than we do have, we did look at the number of parking spaces on site, and as Fiona indicated, that Tufts is continually updating their master plan. And as she said, there was a shortage of spaces. We're providing these spaces. Originally, they had, before this parking lot gets constructed, they have 959 spaces. Adding the extra 150, we're going to be 1,109 spaces. Accessible spaces, so these spaces are dedicated to the campus to provide additional parking for points westward and not so much to the Venice Barber Wildlife Center. They have plenty of parking to accommodate that facility, so it's everything headed west. The destinations they meet the required accessible number of parking spaces per the ADA requirements and the MAAB. So that's it. Any questions from the board, Mr. Chairman?
Any questions from the board? Questions, comments?
No, that was pretty thorough.
I have one question,
Thank you.
which might be simple, but the used parking spaces that will be impacted while this is going on for development, would any of
Yep.
that be impacted during the period of calendar year where there is like peak activity on the campus? So would we be worsening parking temporarily during this construction?
No, that's a great question. And that's why, and is this Justin?
Yes.
Nice seeing you again. So this one, that's a good question, Justin. This is why we're targeting the start of construction in May. They are already speaking with contractors now to hit the ground running. Contractors that have looked at this have said it's a very tight construction window, but they plan to get it done. So the plan would be to do it during the summer where there's very minimal activity on campus. The town has been great, meeting with town staff, Fiona included, to position our team to have that happen. We have, as you folks probably know, there was a round of comments raised by Graves Engineering. There was some comments raised by Fiona. We've addressed those to their satisfaction. Same thing with DEP and Concom. We've addressed those to their satisfaction, even before the start of the public hearing process. Part of that, again, was to try to expedite this as quickly as we could, Justin, just for that exact reason right there. So that there wouldn't be any conflict with any of the activity on the campus.
And my only other comment, not a question, is I am impressed and surprised that ladder truck fits through this parking lot. But that's a
You know what? Well, you know what? It's funny. I have a dear friend of mine who is, so I live in the town of Auburn, and I have a dear friend of mine who was a captain here. They had a 4th of July party in a real tight part of town. And one of his guys, and there was parking all over the place. And Jeff got a call from one of his guys, and he said that the guy couldn't move the vehicle. And Jeff went down there, and he says it's amazing. It's almost like driving your own vehicle. He says, I know it's hard to believe, especially in the town of Grafton. I don't know if you folks are aware, but you folks are well known for having the largest ladder beast in the area.
Yes.
It's a monster. It is a monster. And when that thing helps other communities, it's very clear who the bully is. It's very clear. So yeah, I hear you. And these models too, they're conservative. You know, they are conservative, but you know, that's basically design. You like to be conservative in your design. So yeah, I would tend to agree, but they work.
Anything else from the board? Just note for the record that all the peer review comments seem to have been satisfied. Our peer reviewer has no open issues. As far as I can tell from reading the record, I don't see that there's anything that we are expecting to receive in this that we haven't already seen.
That's correct.
I'm quite satisfied. My only thought is it probably has a benefit to keep the hearing open until he's at least visited conservation to see if there's any changes he needs to make.
I think that's their.
And he's visiting tomorrow.
I would want to ask them which way they want to go on that.
It's up to them for sure. I just
Yeah.
So,
thought.
so I do appreciate that. The letter that, and I think, you know, typically that's a good suggestion if the meetings weren't being run concurrently. And if Graves Engineering didn't review the letter for both the commission and planning, they reviewed the stormwater for both. In terms of, you know, the commission's perspective, they're more concerned with the erosion sediment control measures and the stormwater, and everything's in check. We did have, truth be told, when we were looking at the design here, and part of the reason that we went with this, the culvert crossing, is, and I would love to blame Nate for this one, but I'm not going to do it. It's not my style. But we had, in this particular case here, the culvert as originally designed was a little closer and actually kissed the edge of the wetland. And so it looked like we were altering wetlands. So what we did is we shortened the culvert. It was at 35 feet. Now it's down to 32 feet. And we were able to address that. So while I appreciate the comment, Mr. Wood, I think that, you know, given where we are in terms of the peer review letter, the final peer review having gotten issued by Graves Engineering, quite honestly, we don't see any issues with the Conservation Commission on this.
Okay. Yeah. I'm happy to move that we.
Well, we have to see if the public
Yeah.
has any input.
That's good point, Dave. Robert.
I'd have been there already if
Yes.
that wasn't.
Yeah, so this is a public hearing, or public meeting. It's technically not a hearing, correct? Whatever it is,
You do it like a hearing.
there's an opportunity for public input regardless of what we call the meeting. So, is there any public input? I see nobody here in the meeting room. I see one Zoom attendee, but the Zoom attendee seems to be in this room.
Yes, it's me.
Just logged on to Zoom as an attendee.
Yep. That's me.
So, to the best of my perception, there seem to be no public comments.
I move we
offered to
close the
board.
hearing.
I will
Second.
second.
Moved and seconded that we close the hearing. Any discussion of the motion? Hearing none. Mr. Venkatraman,
Aye.
Mr. Dalamole,
Aye.
Mr. Hassinger,
Aye.
Mr. Wood,
Aye.
Mr. Robbins, all side. Did it trip anybody up by going
It's
in
odd
a
going
different
backwards.
order?
Now, is it, given this timing, is it okay to now move to direct staff to draft a decision?
I think I would accept that motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion of that motion?
Yeah, the reason I was thinking about the possibility that something comes back from Concom, but now that we're closed, you have to go through the same
Yeah.
stuff, no matter what.
All right. Any further discussion of the motion? Mr. Hassinger,
Aye.
Mr. Venkatraman,
Aye.
Mr. Wood,
Aye.
Mr. Dalamole,
Aye.
Mr. Robbins votes aye. I reserve the right to always vote last, but to mix up everybody else. Motion carried unanimously. Staff will draft a decision, and the board will deliberate on the decision at our next meeting, 2 weeks from tonight.
Yes.
So folks, like I said, it's been a little while since I had seen you folks. I did express to Fiona how much I do appreciate coming before this board. I've had a great level of respect. I know that Mr. Hassinger has been on here. I don't know how long. I noticed Mrs. Hassinger's not on the board. Hope she's doing well. And I do appreciate her tenure on the board. But you guys, I've always appreciated coming before you guys. I think you've always been very professional and a great board to communicate with. So I'm looking forward. I think we'll be doing more projects with Tufts on this campus, and I very much look forward to continuing working with this board on other projects.
No, thank you, and thank you for taking the time to work on this with us, and we'll look forward to the next project, whatever and whenever it may be.
Sounds great, folks. Hey, enjoy yourselves. Take
night.
care.
Thank you.
Stay safe. Stay healthy.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
So we have one more discussion item on our agenda. That would be the meeting, the Grafton Common Traffic Study Open House that was held last week, Wednesday.
Sure. So I will just give a brief overview of what went down. I thought it was a very successful event. There was 50 folks there, a mix of board members, 2 in particular, Dave and Bob. Thanks for coming, and select board members as well. Town staff. Evan was there. Myself. It was just very, very successful. I think a lot of people, we heard overwhelming feedback that people got a lot out of it, especially some of the data findings. The presentation, and the interactive board stations and the feedback that was provided are all uploaded on the project page on the planning department's website. We have a stakeholder email list of, I think we're at 40, give or take. So there's a lot of people who are interested in the project and are signing up for the biweekly stakeholder emails, which is really exciting. So the next steps now, following that presentation, will be, Stantec doing their thing. They'll be analyzing the data that they received and providing kind of initial findings. I have a check-in meeting with them in a week, so we'll kind of go over that and then the next steps of the project. But right now they're really focusing on kind of taking in everything that they heard, because there was a lot of feedback. There was a lot of suggestions ranging from rotaries to signals to lane widening, pavement, movement of crosswalks, not behind the stop bar, reducing signage, increasing signage. There was a lot of different suggestions thrown out by the public, and it was really great. I think that it was very effective sending the abutters notices in the mail. So we'll probably continue to do that for any upcoming meetings for this project. But kind of just wanted to just report back. I know that this project is is important. You know, obviously the common is a community focal point and a high priority for this board, as well as others. So, just wanted to report that it was a great turnout and great. Big thank you to the library staff for the space. It was wonderful. I'm going to try and have as many meetings as possible in there because it was very easy. The tech was very, very easy as well. So, you know, with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that the board may have. And just, you know, want to just advise anyone who's listening at home, you know, continue to engage and reach out to myself or the planning department, email any questions about the project. The project is going on until the end of June. So we'll still have a lot more opportunities to hear more. But yeah, no, I think it was just a very, very successful event. Very happy with it. So.
Quite a meeting. I was happy that I got a chance to put out my crazy idea, and advocate for it, and they said they could think about that too, for what that's worth. But then I got to talk to one of our top town officials, and they called it a Rotary idea, but thought it made sense. Saw why it was a good idea. Yeah. So now there's 1.5 people who think.
Yeah.
I think people were picturing a roundabout. When I say roundabout, they're talking about a roundabout, and of course you can't fit that. No, traffic all goes one way around it. So if people with drafting equipment can look at it and see how the space looks, it just makes sense. The way the flow, you have to look at the way the traffic flows. You get rid of the need for a traffic light. You get rid of all sorts of conflicts. It may take longer to head towards Upton from Worcester, but it might take you less time to do that, because you won't have nearly the conflict at the corner of Worcester and whatever it is,
Yeah.
Grafton Common.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. I think we saw in the presentation where they kind of comparing, like, big thing was like a focus on speed as well, and the comparative times of speed limits at 30,
exactly.
25, 15. I thought it's only a few seconds really of a difference, which was, you know, it's very telling, you know, it's because I think that's always going to be a top priority. Obviously, pedestrian and, you know, and car safety, you know, passenger vehicle safety is the top priority. And, you know, when you think about some of these solutions, it's really only changing your experience by a matter of seconds, really. So,
I live on North Street, right? So I go through every day. It's really just about having a little more patience and just going through a little bit slower,
yeah.
right? People are doing risky stuff to save like 60 seconds.
Yep.
It's kind of not worth it. So yeah, and I mean, because of the width of some of those roads, like for example, North Street, it's very wide and very straight. So people just naturally go pretty fast.
Right. Right.
So I don't know if there is a way to kind of slow people down as they approach, right? I haven't had a chance to go through the whole outcome of this, but
Yeah, I think
when
that,
you're waiting there, that's really what it's about. I mean, I get it. People are like, this is my chance to get across or whatever. But sometimes you just have to wait for the next chance, and it's only going to be a minute.
right.
the Stantec folks had quite a bit to say about ideas for designing things so that people just naturally want to go slow,
Yeah.
which is probably easier said than done. But there are some various traffic calming measures that you can take to so that people will only feel comfortable if they're driving slower.
Yeah, no, I've been
So-
through some stuff related in a master's degree that I had where we did a project on street life, and one of the things is the width of the street,
Yeah.
right? So, like for example, when they repaved North Street and the lines weren't up yet, it was even worse because the road seems huge. Now, how you make the road seem tighter and accommodate all the trucks or whatever people that need to get through there, it's tough. But
Yeah, so that's the kind of thing that Stantec says that they'll be looking at.
okay,
Yeah. There was a fair amount of advocacy for making what we call the boulevard. I think the name changed.
Yeah.
back to
Drive.
two-way. The street in back of,
Okay, yeah,
It used to
the
be
church,
two-way.
in front of the church.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so you
that-
come down, you turn, cross the railroad, and you can go down Worcester Street without having to go through the critical intersection at,
Oh, behind the townhouse, in
Yes.
between
Right.
that and
that
the,
little-
yeah.
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 yeah, I think that would be, that's gotta cut out a lot of the traffic that comes down North Street, turns across in front of the townhouse. the
Well, that's
church.
your
right-
shortcut if you're turning right onto, Worcester Street, you just cut back there.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you could come up that way, then.
Like I said, it
But
used
you
to be
still
that.
need to
but-
know, you still need to be a local and know that that's quicker than going up to the.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, it used to be that way. I think when it was two-way, you would frequently have situations where anybody parked on either side, including the parallel to the road rather than perpendicular near the antique shop right now, it would always have trouble getting by two cars.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of
That was
parking
my
back
experience
there.
back
I
in
mean, you'd
the
probably
day.
have to work with the railroad people because they have a bunch of space back there, and you know, but there's a lot of parking back there, so you'd have to widen it somehow for it to be workable. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah. That was discussed.
that ought to
too.
be helpful to make
Yeah.
that available.
My only question, Fiona, is that mailing list. Should the board expect to be automatically on it, or should we individually sign up for updates?
I will add you.
Okay, that works.
No.
I was
I
just,
think
Yeah, to check.
Dave and Bob were on it from the initial, because I wanted to have the my thought process at the time was having the chair and the vice chair at the very least of the planning board
Yep.
and select board to start, but I will add everybody to that. Yeah.
And yeah, I regret that I wasn't there. I just had other commitments that couldn't make it.
Yeah, it's a tough time. You know, it's hard.
But
Yeah, the library, that room in the library, of course, it was designed to be good, but there's good parking, right adjacent. Electric charging for your electric cars, right there.
Yeah, it's a really good space.
I don't know whether they fixed it so that water won't come through under the door anymore, though. That
didn't
was a
see any
big
water.
deal.
But it wasn't a wet day out that day. So.
The last I heard, supposedly, they think they fixed that.
Well,
I
I'll
don't
tell
know
you that
we've-
just to add to it, that day was a very extreme day, and it was during that really wet summer. And I think that the real cause of it was the water table was so high on that day that everything flooded. It was like a river coming down from Pigeon Hill and everything like that. So.
But you can't have the sidewalk at exactly.
Oh, I get that, but I'm saying
You know,
it takes
you know,
a lot.
you know, you
to-
got, yeah, and I don't know how you do it for the handicap access, but you've got to somehow have some grade separation between the, between the outside and the inside.
All right, so we'll look forward to hearing more on the traffic at the Common. Nothing else on that. We do apparently have some bills that ought to be paid.
Move that we, authorize payment of the bills.
second,
Moved and seconded that we authorize payment of the bills. Just to be different, I'll vote first. Mr. Robbins votes aye. Mr. Vidal-Mole,
Aye.
Mr. Wood,
aye.
Mr. Venkatraman,
Aye.
and Mr. Hassinger.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
Agent of chaos tonight.
I know. Madness ensuing.
Okay, staff report.
Okay, so last time we met, it was 3 weeks ago, which it's nice to have a break, but at the same time, I'm like, wait a second, that's a lot of time. But anyway, so obviously, as we discussed, we had the Grafton Common traffic study update open house, which was a success. We had our April master plan working group meeting where the working group discussed the outreach and the kind of next steps for that process, which will be continuing to review comments that were received and incorporating them, and that will continue into May, followed by a public comment period for at least 2 weeks. I'm thinking that it's going to go a little bit longer, maybe even a month, to just allow even more time. And then, once all of that feedback is incorporated and accounted for and finalized, then, the plan can be presented to the planning board. So we're looking, probably early summer. With that being said, I know that there was some discussion about getting it on, getting the approval on for town meeting this spring, but just due to the volume of feedback, and just kind of wanting to have very careful consideration of all of the comments that were received. I think waiting until fall was the agreed upon approach. So that's exciting. We're getting to the end. It's almost been 3 years, and very excited, and have a really robust and greatly assembled, for lack of a better term, an implementation plan. That's very excited. So I think that the next steps from there, once we get our approvals and everything, will be master plan implementation committee. So starting to think about that. I have been doing a lot of driving around with Graves Engineering for some construction compliance. We were out at a few different sites. We've been spending a lot of time doing reviews and having just ongoing discussions with UPS. They're moving pretty quickly, so we're kind of continuing to meet with them almost on a weekly basis. It is at a weekly basis at this stage. Continuing to go out and inspect the erosion controls. They're going to start making some work, making some moves toward the development of the main building now. Clearing is almost complete. So, no issues. They have a pretty great stormwater peer reviewer, Epsilon. So that's nice. They proactively report to us in the Conservation Commission with anything that comes up. Very communicative. So, in addition to that, been kind of, we did get a notification a few days ago that we did apply for 2 building resilient infrastructure in communities, also called BRIC grants through FEMA. That program has been discontinued, so we will no longer be able to pursue that funding source for the East Street culvert improvements or the Merriam Road culvert improvements. So we'll keep our eye out for more opportunities. It's just interesting to, how things are kind of unfolding, because we did have a few federal applications, so we're kind of waiting to see kind of how that rolls out. So I am trying to help the Affordable Housing Trust. We had at their last meeting, I had recommended, from talking to a colleague in another community who had done a similar project, that the trust work on a feasibility study for the development of the 3 High Point lots that are under their ownership, just to have some of that due diligence done before an RFP is submitted, so you can just kind of puts them in a more advantageous position to get more and better RFP responses when they are ready to develop. So looking at some grant opportunities there, I think I'm going to be submitting a community one-stop grant for them for that work. Conversations are still ongoing. I mean, the one-stop portal is open till June, so there's some time there, but yeah.
Outside of grants, is a feasibility study for that something that I should know this, but CPA funds can do? Because I know CPA is, the Affordable Housing Trust has funds that can be used for CPA purposes.
I was going to propose to the trust at the next meeting that they might be able to use some of their 10% affordable housing allocation to contribute to a match for a grant opportunity. I'll look into if the feasibility study outright can be funded by CPA.
That's what I don't know.
I've seen recent quotes of that go up to 75,000. So they can be quite expensive. So I think whatever we can do to kind of supplement.
I know at least the 10% CPA grants to the Affordable Housing Trust every year. That funding is designated for affordable housing, CPA purposes. So the Affordable Housing Trust could use it for qualifying CPA uses. That said, they could see the Affordable Housing Trust could apply for specific funds for a particular project as well. But I don't know, any separate application like that would be town vote as well as a,
The only thing I know, or I believe I know, about CPA funds for housing is that every dollar of CPA funds given to the Affordable Housing Trust must be in support of development of affordable housing.
Yeah.
So if, for example, they were gonna take those 3 lots and do 2 affordables and 1 market rate,
that wouldn't work.
the CPA money could not in any way be contributing to the market rate development. But short of that, it probably,
Yeah. Like,
if there was a way to arrange that right, you could probably do it.
yeah, that's what I wasn't sure, but like if the feasibility study itself is qualifying because it's in furtherance of developing an affordable housing unit, but I don't know.
No, it's a good point.
Yeah, you probably get some pushback if the CPA funds were to fund the entire feasibility study, because then part of that would be related to market rate housing.
Fair.
If they
But that's why I said if you could arrange a division of funds in a way that would meet the CPA requirements,
Yeah.
it probably could be done.
Okay, yeah. And then we're continuing to kind of chip away at the implementation of the longer range plans in between the kind of uptick that we've had in inquiries and applications and kind of technical assistance in the in that regard. So it's unfortunately the open space. We had discussed a couple of meetings ago about ongoing work to preserve any of the open spaces that were not preserved in perpetuity as part of some past flexible development subdivisions, for example. It's on my radar. I just haven't been able to get my head into it or properly able to delegate it yet, but it will be coming. Council is aware, so and they will be kind of doing most of the heavy lifting with
good.
that. But
We've got a long list of parcels that ultimately would like to see protected, but
right.
yeah, there's only so much staff time available.
Right. But I just wanted to assure everybody that it's very much on the radar, and it's something that we are focused on. We just haven't been able to dig through some of the the details as much as we'd like. So, kind of bouncing back and forth between things. Other than that, we are working with CMRPC, Mike Mon Brown, I believe is how you pronounce his name, on a, so that we submitted a district local technical assistance application to assess the flexible development subdivisions versus conventional, and kind of do kind of an analysis on the efficacy of that bylaw and how other communities address it. So in hopes that we can kind of further that type of development style and maybe incentivize more folks that are coming before this board to pursue that option. Obviously, it has great benefits for the town, with open space being preserved, and I know that's a top priority. So there's a draft survey out. I did provide some initial comments, and I can circulate that to board members who are interested in providing additional feedback. It definitely hasn't gone live, but it looks great. We're just kind of tweaking some things. And then I have a follow-up meeting with our CMRPC point of contact to start the ADU bylaw discussion. We had an initial kind of kickoff meeting to kind of just, it was a very high level discussion. So now we're going to break out into individual meetings. It is a regional application, so there's other communities, including Grafton, that submitted a letter of support. So we might be put in like a stakeholder group with another community, but I want to kind of drill down with CMRPC and get interviews with our building commissioner and myself and the board, and take, and when they're ready to start that process, you'll be hearing from me. So that's all I've got for now. Wi-Fi hotspots project, last but not least, is going. Thank you, Bob, for your help in pushing that along. It was very it was stagnant there for a while, and I think that just working out the logistics on the back end, they were trying to coordinate with CMD, who's kind of the software side versus the hardware. So it looks like they're moving forward, and we should be able to see some results in summer. So that's great.
We should be able to
See results in summer.
results.
Yeah.
Results, actual results.
Where,
Yeah.
remind me just to state, where are we putting the Wi-Fi hotspots?
Sure. So there's Mill Villages Park in South Grafton in the
The building.
building. Thank you. I could not even think of the word. The kind of overhang structure there.
Never can remember.
They had originally proposed trying to do an installation on the bandstand, which I discouraged because I know that there's other areas in the common that are more suitable and already support that. So there's a electrical box,
Yep.
the painted electrical box. So they proposed an alternative location there, which is a lot more. I think makes much more sense.
I didn't push on that when I saw it, but the gazebo is in the middle, so the distance from the antenna is more equal all around, so you get more equal
Yeah.
coverage. And at least with the talks we had when I went around, they had something they could install right up in the top that would be almost unnoticeable. I'm not so sure. We're talking about a short pole coming up off the electrical box right there at Upton Street, and I'm not so sure about that. But
Yeah. Electrical interference can weaken Wi-Fi signal sometimes too.
do what?
Electrical interference can weaken a Wi-Fi signal, especially the newer bands of Wi-Fi.
Well, the electrical box. There's electricity in the gazebo.
Yes, but
That comes from the box.
yes, but the box has more of a concentration.
Well, okay, yeah. The signal is going through the box on its
True.
way to wherever it's going.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Chances are the Wi-Fi antenna will be outside the box.
I would hope so.
no, it's supposed to be. There was something about a short, like a 6-foot pole or a short pole, which strikes me as not being all that great. But
And the Wi-Fi project is also looking at Whitney Park up by Station 2.
Yeah, Whitney Park. Yeah, there's going to be a hotspot installed at the corner of Station 2, as Dave just said, and then on a utility pole by Perry Hill Park as well, which is right there.
Yeah, my impression, just to kind of echo Bob, is that up under the roof of the gazebo would probably be a spot no one would notice. It wouldn't interfere with the gazebo structurally. It wouldn't, and it would potentially have a bigger reach without larger power input.
Yeah, I'm happy to try and get on the next Historic District Commission's meeting to just have that discussion with them and just say we're looking at alternatives, but based on the feedback that we've heard from the consultant, there's a wider range, it'll be more protected, et cetera, et cetera. So I can reach out to their chair and
you might
discuss.
want to be able to show them what this alternative at the electrical box would look like. Because you're going to have an antenna like, I guess it's like about, that big.
Yeah.
And it's going to be up there someplace, right next to the fancy.
Well, I would think about what the use cases are. I mean, in thinking about it, I'd say the primary one would be when there's a farmer's market, the vendors might want to tap into it.
Yeah.
But otherwise, when there are lots of people at the common, they're usually part of an event, right? And so it's less likely that you need Wi-Fi if you're listening to a concert or something like that.
No, the world lives like this.
And
Yeah. No, one of the ideas, where this came from, the
rapid recovery plan.
what?
The local rapid recovery plan.
Local, yeah, LRRP, Local Rapid Recovery Plan. But the idea for this was to make the parks someplace where people could take their laptops and so on, sit on the bench and do some reading, do some work. So it was more. It was as much for the people who were just casually visiting the parks, and the idea that would be the availability of Wi-Fi would attract more people to the parks. As I recall, that was
That was
sort of the
something that-
basis of the original idea.
Yeah, that we're definitely trying to get more traction, obviously in our public spaces, and have people, be able to utilize them and to get, work and what have you. And just with the volume of activity and what, maybe having the option for vendors to be able to kind of utilize that. And
Well, I'm just saying for the location of it, right? It's a long yard.
Yeah.
There's no way you're getting end to end with one, I don't think.
But actually, yeah,
are you?
what we've heard was that, at least the discussions I was in, was that the Wi-Fi access points that are designed for use outdoors have a significantly longer range than your typical access point inside the home.
Sure. Yeah. If it does cover end to end, then awesome. I guess
fact-
my question was like, think about when people are going to actually take the time to tap into it. The one I can think of is the farmer's market.
Yeah.
So if it was, maybe it works from that metal box because they're all sort of lined up in the middle there. But it's when something happens with lots of people, it's usually in the center.
yeah,
Yes, there are the benches, but I walk through there all the time, and there's not like lots of people doing something
So
electronic there.
the
As
theory
soon
is,
as we have Wi-Fi, it will be.
And
Right.
the theory was that the Wi-Fi would attract more
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, you go
I will
get
say
your ice cream.
One of my other experiences is that when you have, the younger generation of, musicians that might perform at the bandstand and things like that, one thing that is fairly common is having tips available to give to the
Oh,
to
sure.
the people on like Venmo or some other app like that is advertised by the people. That'd be one use of
Really?
the internet.
Well, yeah, they do that now. They do face painting for the kids, and they do a whole thing on Venmo. But I mean, I guess what I'm getting at is it works on people's phones.
Yeah.
But
They're using.
I'm not saying that it shouldn't be there. I'm just saying if you're factoring in where to place it, I would think about the use cases of when people are going to actually tap into it versus you're walking through from end to end. You're not going to get on the Wi-Fi when you're just walking.
right. And I think we'll have to factor that into as well. And I think I might need to follow up with Comtrack to get kind of an idea from them of the range, and just present those alternatives for people, because that's going to be a question that people ask as well. So yeah, I'm happy to do that.
Okay.
Anything else for Fiona? Anybody notice anything in the correspondence?
I did.
that caught their eye? Bob?
Did anybody else notice? We have a message here, email from Anthony Sinisi at CMRPC, saying, addressed to Fiona and Evan. Good afternoon, Evan and Fiona. Congratulations. CMRPC has awarded the Town of Grafton the Community Planning Award, which will be presented at the CMRPC annual meeting and awards dinner on June 12th at Salem Cross Inn. If you accept on behalf of the town, you are invited to attend the dinner. You are welcome to invite any guests that you would like to. This includes colleagues, elected/appointed officials, family, and friends. You and your guests can directly register for the dinner, blah, blah, blah. Please do a blow and blow. That came as a surprise to me. I didn't know that they were, we have an award like that every year for that and for some other things. I'll be there because I'm on every committee they have, just about. But that's good. Fiona's been keeping them in business just by herself. Yeah, they've been having a lot of back and forth with you, haven't they?
Yeah.
And we're getting good mileage out of our access to them. Okay, so anyway, I did notice that.
Family invited. My 9-year-old will love it.
I think that's the only thing I noticed in correspondence.
Yeah, it's, the first thing in the correspondence was the bill that finally got passed to extend, remote meetings. We already all knew about it, but, it's interesting to note that that bill is now Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025. It is only the second bill since the beginning of the year, only the second bill that the legislature has passed and sent to the governor for signature.
Well, what, it was not much more than 3 months into the year, or,
Yeah,
I mean, what do you expect?
Yeah.
You know, about 87% of the bills get passed in the last day when they're adjourning, don't they?
yes.
By consent.
The last legislative day, which often lasts for a lot longer than 24 hours.
Yeah. As long as it passed.
All right, anything else from correspondence? Any reports from planning board representatives and town committees and CMRPC?
You can consider my report as my CMRPC report.
Any other items which may lawfully come before the board? I don't think I'm even gonna ask for a vote to extend past 10 o'clock.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Moving and seconded that we be adjourned. Mr. Wood,
Aye.
Mr. Hassinger,
Aye.
Mr. Delamole,
Aye.
Mr. Venkatraman,
Aye.
and Mr. Robbins votes aye. Motion carried unanimously. We are adjourned.